nothing in me ever wanted to give up because I wanted it so much. I am so stubborn. I believed it would happen. I believed it would happen. I didn't know it was going to take 20 years, but I believed in my soul that it was going to happen. And if I gave up, I would regret it for the rest of my life.
Hey, Sam, welcome to the Stark Reflections podcast.
Hi, it's so good to see you, Mark.
It's been so long. I know we saw each other in person, a month ago, but it's been so long since we've chatted. And the last time I had you on the podcast was a few years ago, I think. It was a couple of years ago, at least. Was it pre-pandemic even?
It was pre-pandemic, and I did not know how to use Zoom, so I couldn't even turn on my camera.
Well, this time we've got video evidence that you're willing to talk to me. Okay, cool. Awesome. I am so excited about Watch Out for Her. Now, this is your latest thriller. You got two #1 best-selling thrillers, standalone. And let's first talk about, so Watch Out for Her was released earlier this year. It was a #1 Globe and Mail bestseller, and it was a #1 Toronto Star bestseller. You were riding the #1 spot. How many weeks in a row were you on that list?
#1, I'm not sure. In total, 13 weeks.
13 weeks on the top 10 bestseller. Like, oh my God, that is fantastic. So you couldn't walk into a bookstore in Canada, a good bookstore in Canada, and not find this book on the shelf, right? Primarily, I think I was sending you pictures of different bookstores I was going into. Look, and it was on like Shoppers Drug Mart. It was the mass markets, not the mass. Yeah, it was on the shelf there.
It was on the shelf there. It was at Walmart, Costco. It was a buyer's pick, and so.
Oh, awesome!
And the bookstore, like, just everyone is so good to me there. They put it where everybody can see it, and they're so hugely supportive. And then people like you send me shots. Those are my favorite thing in the world, because I can't get to all the bookstores and I can't see it all. And so when someone sends me a shot, especially, indie bookstores, I love when indie bookstores in small towns, people find it. Oh, I love it. It means the world to me.
It's got to be a little bit surreal though, right?
Oh, it's 100% surreal. I've talked to you about this before, and we've known each other for 10 years. You've known me since the days of wanting to be in traditional publishing desperately, but nobody wanted me. Or no one wanted the books I had written at that point. And so it was 20 years. I worked 20
years to get to where you are. So other writers who may be looking at you and being jealous of your success, don't recognize the iceberg, right? You're just seeing the tip. You're not seeing all that work. So hang on a second, 20 years. So obviously, so let's go back to Woman on the Edge, which was that released in 2019 or 2020?
So it was released November 2019 in Canada and the UK.
Okay.
And then in the US, it was released March 3rd.
Oh no!
A week before the pandemic hit in 2020. It was,
and yet it was still a #1 USA Today #1 bestseller, wasn't it?
Well, it wasn't #1 in the US. That would be.
Sorry, it was on the USA Today bestseller. It was on the USA. Sorry, my apologies. I got excited.
Yeah, that would
during
be
the pandemic.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, during the pandemic, it did hit the USA Today bestseller list. And I'll be perfectly transparent. There was a BookBub deal for it. And so it helps immensely, because to try to reach the biggest market in the world, there does have to be something behind it generally, whether it's a sale or it's some kind of pick or something really exciting and fortunate happens.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because these are traditionally published. It's not like you can just go, oh, I'm going to drop the price and do a promo. Yeah. I mean, you've got an agent, you've got an editor, you've got probably publicists. I think I met one of your publicists at a book fair not that long ago.
Yes.
And so it all has to be coordinated because, big New York publishers and Toronto publishers, big publishers, have to deal with this. So because you had 3 different rights, does this mean that the same publisher picked it up, but with different? So go back to Woman on the Edge. There was the Canadian and UK edition which were simultaneously released. You have different editors. How did that work?
So Woman on the Edge sold in 11 territories so far.
Wow.
And so I actually have 11 different editors.
There's 11
Yeah.
contracts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My agent is Jenny Bent of the Bent Agency. She's a rock star. She is just incredible. So she secured, rights in 11 territories for me.
Wow.
But how it works is, so I have a Canadian publisher, Simon Schuster Canada, for Watch Out for Her and Woman on the Edge, and they are phenomenal.
Love them. I got an arc of that first book. I was so excited to get it.
Oh, I was so excited. My editor, fun fact, for both of my first two books is Nita Prose, author of The Maid.
Really? That's your editor?
That's my editor.
Oh
yes.
My goodness. Awesome.
Yes. Yeah. I just have this I have this amazing team for those two books. And so, Jenny and I had edited the book together. And then when it sold, Nita and I edited it. Nita's exceptional. And then Cherise Hobbs was my editor for Woman on the Edge in the UK. And so we did edits, and we all collaborated together. And then with the foreign editors, they take generally the final copy, and they will offer notes and suggestions if something doesn't work in a different language, because there are things like my title might be odd in a different language.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so you're talking about 11 territories. You're talking about other languages besides English, or you're talking about UK English versus American English?
Yeah. So I think nine different languages.
Wow. Yeah, because Woman on the Edge might not translate verbatim. It might have to be something that, I get you. That makes sense.
Yeah. And Watch Out for Her, it is 3 or 4 territories at this point. So in languages. So that has also been, it's unreal, not even surreal. It is unreal.
So let's go back to this long, hard climb, because you when did you find Jenny? And you and Jenny probably worked on selling that first book for quite a while, right?
The selling happened fairly quickly. The editing was 3.5 years. But how did I find Jenny?
Yeah.
I found Jenny 20 years ago.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I sent Jenny 3 other books before Woman on the Edge, and she very kindly passed.
Really? 3 other books. So she's like, yes, I like it, but not enough. I don't think I can sell it. Whatever.
Yeah, it was just, it wasn't for her.
Right.
And for whatever reason, this is such a subjective business. And other agents as well agreed. I've been rejected. Oh my, people say they could wallpaper their house. I could wallpaper my neighborhood with the amount of rejections on books that I have
you give up?
Received.
Why didn't you give up? Like all these slaps in the face. What was the persistence? How did you get up every day and go, I'm going to keep going with this?
Nothing in me ever wanted to give up, because I wanted it so much. I am so stubborn. I believed it would happen. I didn't know it was going to take 20 years, but right. I believed in my soul that it was going to happen. And if I gave up, I would regret it for the rest of my life. I had nothing to lose by continuing and, to keep going. And I am extremely lucky then and now to have a huge support system of friends and fellow writers and family who were, there with me saying, you can do this. I believe in you, which I think is such a massive thing to propel you forward. You need people to say, I believe in you, right. And for you to believe in yourself.
That's awesome. And so you have that very supportive family,
yes.
A community of writers that you probably connect with, etc.
Yes.
Okay. That's kind of, let's go back to the books themselves. When I first saw the cover for Watch Out for Her, I went, wait a second, I recognize that yellow coat. Was that on purpose? Because they're completely standalone. I was like, is there a tie-in? And is there a tie-in that's like, is there a secret Easter egg that I didn't pick up on that there is, it's the same universe? Or
I have to say 2 things to that. One is second my daughter saw it, she is 12, my daughter saw it, and she said, that looks like It by Stephen King.
God, yeah, watch out for that.
Yes. And I was like, oh, maybe that's not a bad thing. And then I have these amazing readers, Sandra and Jill Jemmett, who, when I was doing Motive, which was the thriller mystery festival with the Toronto International Festival of Authors over the summer, they brought me the most beautiful gift, these 2 notebooks with girls with yellow raincoats on the cover. And I love that. So the yellow raincoat was absolutely not kind of an intentional choice. When the cover was sent to me for Watch Out for Her for approval, I will admit fully, at first I was like, yellow raincoat. Actually, no, my first thought was, oh, I love this cover. I love it. It was everything to me that encapsulates this book. I loved everything, the colors. I liked that the colors were similar to Woman on the Edge. Right. But the yellow raincoat, I was like, will people think this is a sequel? Will they think? And in the end, we talked about it, because we talk about everything openly, and we all decided maybe in some way it maybe gives me a brand. Okay, again, is that a bad thing? No, that it will be a cover that's, a Samantha M cover, that it's recognizable. The cover,
always gonna have to be a little yellow on the cover somewhere.
It's always gonna have to be a little yellow. Everyone says that. And to me, the cover, I loved it, and I still love it. So yes, many people have asked, and I laugh every time, because yes, it's the yellow raincoat.
So let's set up for anyone who is not lucky enough to have read this amazing, I call it a domestic thriller, I guess, right?
Sure.
The specific kind of thriller it is. Set it up for us. What's this? What is Watch Out for Her about?
So Watch Out for Her is the story of a mother named Sarah Goldman, who she's middle-aged. Her son, Jacob, is almost 7 years old, and she's been a stay-at-home mother his entire life. And she gets to the point where she has lost herself. She wants to find that piece of herself that's missing. And she's a photographer. So she wants to return to her first passion, which is photography. So she decides to hire a 22-year-old babysitter, a med student named Holly Monroe, to watch her son for the summer. And at first, it's a perfect arrangement. Jacob and Holly adore each other. And Sarah and Holly find something in each other that they're both missing. They're both longing to be seen, and they give that to each other. And they bond very quickly, too quickly. And then Sarah sees something that she can't unsee. And she feels that she needs to escape from Vancouver, where they live, to Toronto with her family, and get as far away from Holly as possible. But when they arrive to their new home in Toronto, she finds hidden cameras everywhere, and she has to wonder if Holly isn't so far behind after all.
And the camera motif was just so powerful, because you have the hidden cameras, the discovery of the hidden cameras, but then you have Sarah's passion for photography, and there's a lot of stuff that's seen through specific lenses.
Yes.
Obviously, and perception of other, and perception of self. I mean, there's so much going on here. The other thing I think that's going on is a really great example of narrators, and it's told from 2 perspectives, right? You get Sarah
yes.
and Holly's perspective. So alternating chapters with different perspectives. An unreliable narrator, right, is a key element. Can you talk a little bit about that sort of unreliable narrator aspect?
So I find this so fascinating. I could talk about this for hours, because to me, I am never planning to create an unreliable narrator.
Really?
No, because to me, when it comes to these characters, it is from their points of view. Holly's point of view is third person close third person, present tense. And Sarah's is first person, present tense. And they are telling their own stories the way they perceive them. So it is not unreliable to them. Yes. It is how they perceive what is happening around them, what is happening to them, and what's happening inside them.
Right.
So yeah, so I find the whole term unreliable narrator so interesting, because I don't ever want to trick my reader. It's never my intention.
Right.
I just want my reader to follow their journeys as the characters see themselves.
And I'm glad you said that. That's so perfect, because pretty much every single narrator is unreliable, because in this case, we get to see two different perspectives of how these two different women see what's been happening. And you're saying, wait a second, she said this happened, but from this person's perspective, that happened. What's the reality? I discovered this I co-authored a book with a good friend of mine, and we had to write this go to this backstory. And my main character tells first person past tense narration. That's the whole story. And what we realize is, oh, he just remembered it wrong. So we kind of like, we needed to change some details. We're like, well, of course, he just remembered it wrong. He has man eyes, that kind of thing, right? Or man ears. He heard it improperly.
Exactly. There's this new TikTok filter. I actually don't have my own account, but I'm obsessed. I'm addicted to watching it. There's a filter. How other people see you as opposed to how you see yourself.
Oh, okay.
And it's so interesting, and it's a filter how differently people see you than the way you see yourself. And with that, there's the idea that no two people have the same memory of the same experience.
Yeah. So that is true. But again, that unreliable narrator aspect is something that a lot of people really enjoy in a thriller, because you want to trust and believe in the story that the person's telling you, but you also have to take everything with a grain of salt and go, what am I getting? What sort of tainted perspective am I getting here? Brilliant stuff.
I think as a reader, when I go into a thriller, I don't trust anyone ever. I may, I'm compelled to follow them, and I'm, so interested and intrigued, but I don't trust anyone at all.
So there's this skill you have in getting into the heads of both of these different women and sharing their stories and how they interweave. And then I was lucky enough to listen to the audiobook version, narrated by two absolutely brilliant performers who nailed the voices, just got it down pat. Can you talk a little bit about what was your first experience when you first heard samples from?
I knew immediately. Hillary Huber and Joy Osmansky. It was immediate. It was like that gut punch of they're it. Their voices, to hear I will confess, I never listen to audiobooks. I'm a very visual person. I love music. I am music obsessed. I'm a music addict. But when it comes to reading, I need to touch it. I need to feel it. To absorb it and immerse myself in it. Wow. And it is always weird, I think, as an author, maybe not for all authors, but it's weird to hear someone else read the words that you've written, because you hear them in your head a certain way. You hear the characters' voices a certain way, you see them a certain way. But it was like they were born to read for these characters. They just fully embodied these characters, and I'm grateful to them, and I'm so thrilled that they are the narrators for the book.
Yeah, it's one. Definitely well done.
Thank you.
You've done in-person events, because sort of we've gotten sort of to the end of sort of this phase in the pandemic where we're getting together in person again.
Yeah.
So when you do in-person events, have you had a chance to do readings, and how do you pick? Because do you read like one from Sarah's perspective and one for a piece from Holly, or how do you do the reading?
I am petrified to give anything away.
Okay.
Petrified. It's so hard when you write thrillers, when you talk about them. I generally only read from the first chapter.
You just read from what?
The first chapter.
The first chapter, because that's previewable online anyways. So
Yeah.
you just go from, okay. All right. I was just kind of curious because how do you pick? There's so much in there.
Yeah. And it's so hard that I'm so sorry. I do take the easy route. I don't want to put anything into a reader's heads. Readers, I mean, they're so smart and they pick up on things very quickly. And so I'm just so careful. I'm just so careful.
Well, I'll be honest with you, because my experience with this book was the audiobook. I think I read the blurb, the synopsis, but I didn't need to. I knew Samantha M. Bailey had a new thriller out and I was going to love it. That's all I knew, right? It's kind of like you're one of the buy on site authors, like Michael Connolly, Linwood Barkley, Samantha M. Bailey.
Oh my God, please.
I'm going to read it right away. That's because, I mean, the experience has been 100% awesome, but I didn't really attend to what it was about. I just started listening to it. So I came completely fresh and going, okay, Sarah moving to Toronto, their family, and they're moving to a new house, and it's this new, like, you know what I mean? And then you hit me all the way through. I was like, oh my God, what are you doing to me?
Yay. Oh, that's what I love to do. And it takes so much rewriting and revising and editing, and it takes a great editor and great critique partners.
Right.
And for me, a really solid outline to make sure that I can hit all of those marks so that I can, whether I start quickly or I start slowly, because it's a very different feel like for me between Woman on the Edge and Watch Out for Her.
Yeah.
Woman on the Edge is freight train explosive.
Yeah.
And then Watch Out for Her to me is more slow burn where, I was trying to I'm smoothing, easing you into it. And then hopefully, bam.
Yeah.
Same thing, and then hopefully bam.
Was the tapestry, the tapestry of the play between the two stories is different. Than in the first one, which is, I mean, and the premise of, just for anyone who may not have been lucky enough to listen to our previous episode, which we'll have links to in the show notes, reflections.ca. But Women on the Edge, the premise basically is, and I'll let you deliver it since you've had practice.
Oh my gosh, I haven't done this in so long.
Years. Oh, I'm putting you on the spot. All right, let's see. Do you remember this book?
Oh my gosh. So, the book, the first line is "Take my baby." Morgan Kincaid is standing on a subway platform. She is a traumatized woman who is trying to get her life back together, and she just wants to go home from work at the end of a long day. And a complete stranger, completely disheveled, approaches her with a baby in her arms, and she says, "Take my baby." She thrusts her baby into Morgan's arms, says Morgan's name, and the woman jumps in front of an oncoming train.
Bam. And that is the freight train.
And that's literally.
Yeah. And you're like, okay, what's going on? Again, phenomenal thriller. So you've got these two home runs, these two amazing thrillers. You've got to be working on another thriller, right?
I am, and I won't lie. The pressure from one book to the next. My agent brilliantly said and wisely said, whether it's your first book or your seventh, it never gets easier.
Yes.
And I think it actually just gets harder in some ways. Everything is hard in publishing. Yeah. No one I've ever met in publishing says, yeah, it was so easy. I got my book deal. I became an overnight success, and every book I wrote after that just flowed out of my fingers and it was gold. It's not at all how the situation is. The reality is that every book is a new beginning. Every book feels like you're learning all over again. You take all the lessons you've learned, and with every book I write, my ultimate goal is to write the very best book I can, to compete with nobody else but myself.
Right.
And to learn and grow. I just want to be a better writer every single time. So I am working on another thriller. I will say it is currently set in Michigan, which is interesting. I regret that just slightly, because I couldn't travel for Watch Out for Her. And so I wanted to go to Vancouver and be able to, I set half of it in Vancouver.
Yeah.
But so this time,
especially in the winter when it's warmer there.
When it's warmer. So this is, if I do get to go to Michigan, it might be, I don't know, maybe around November, December. So the weather's the same as in Toronto. So looking back now, I think, I should have said it in Hawaii or Las Vegas.
Well, but Michigan's very much like, mid-northern Ontario too, in terms of the landscape. It's not all that different. So you can probably go not too far from your backyard.
Yes. That's also why I chose Chicago for Women on the Edge. I like to choose settings that feel a little familiar because it's expensive to just go. I have 2 kids. I can't, it's not easy to just up and go and travel to do research.
Right.
So this book, I will at this point tell you, it is very dark. It's a little dirty. And it is about women seeking to change their lives, and all the danger that ensues from when you take risks like that.
Here, take my money. I can't wait to buy this book.
Thank you.
So for and I hope you'll come back and talk to me about that book when it's out. For my listeners, you've been through a lot. You've gotten the 20-year arc and working tirelessly with Jenny back and forth, your relationship, and a few misses on books that she liked but didn't like enough, until finally finding something that she sold to 11 different markets, and then more going on with the latest release in terms of knocking it out of the park right off the bat. What sort of advice would you have given young Samantha who was desperate and wanted to get that publishing deal, wanted to write these books? And the other thing I want to ask is, while you're thinking about that, Samantha, did that Samantha know that she was going to be a thriller author, or did she just want to be an author in general?
I'm going to actually start with your second question, because you and I met when I was writing rom-coms.
Yeah.
So somewhat the answer to this question. Growing up, I was a voracious reader. I'm still a voracious reader. I tended to like books, the darker, the better. I really was fascinated by the dark side. At the same time, though, I did love Sweet Valley High and the rom-coms and all,
Shake it up a little, right?
Yeah, I like to shake it up a little bit. And at the age of, I always knew. I wrote my first short story when I was 10. Sorry, at 10 years old.
10 years old.
10. Yeah. First rejection. 10 years old.
Where did you send it to the CBC radio contest or something?
Kids Can Press.
Kids Can Press. Oh my God! You sent them a story for an anthology?
I sent them a short story. No, to try to get it published.
Oh, because you just sent them a story.
I just sent them a story. I was like, for a children's book, I was like, here, I think this would make a good children's book. They were very kind in their rejection, but apparently it would not make a good children's book, which is fine. So
that's the manuscript that's going to be worth money someday. Find it on eBay.
Freddie the Flame. Anyway, that's a whole other story.
Okay.
So I then wrote stories through high school, and nothing that I ever imagined I was going to try to get published. At 29, I started. I was really interested in chick lit. I loved chick lit. Loved it. Women's fiction chick lit. Jennifer Weiner, Brenda Janowitz, Lynn Messina. You've got all these Red Dress Inc. The Red Dress Inc. authors.
Yeah.
That was my jam. So I thought, I want to do this. So I wrote 2 rom-coms. I signed with a New York agent, not my current agent, my former agent, very quickly. And I was like, I am that overnight success. And no, editors, they didn't want those books. And so that agent and I amicably parted ways. as I went on with the process, I started writing darker and darker women's fiction. I had children. It made me darker because everything became dangerous. The whole world.
Oh, yes, of course. When you're a parent, everything is a danger. Okay.
Everything is a danger and you're scared all the time. So I started writing darker and darker women's fiction. And Woman on the Edge was actually dark women's fiction. And it was Jenny who, before she'd signed me, said, I really think that this would make a great thriller. And I think you can do it. And it was like she saw into my soul, because I wanted to write thrillers, but I was very terrified of the daunting process to do that. Every genre is hard, but for me particularly, I was very scared of the plotting.
Right.
But then in my head, and I've been like this ever since, I never take physical risks. I hold on to the railing walking down the stairs like I'm 95 years old. But in my writing career, I take all the risks, big ones, where I don't know what's going to happen next. Because why not? Why not? Why not? So I took a huge risk, and we tore the book apart and we turned it into a thriller. And I haven't looked back since. And I love it. Writing thrillers feeds something inside me that it's indescribable, really. And reading them as well, and reading them. So I found something that is my greatest passion, besides my children, of course. And so the advice that I would give, I think, what stops most people is fear. Fear of rejection, fear that we're not good enough, fear that our dreams will never be realized, fear that we'll never get to where we want to be. So what I've done with the whole process is take it all word by word and step by step. I go into every publication of every book with no expectations, but big hopes. I have big hopes. I still have big hopes of other things that I want, that I dream of, and the goalpost changes. But I take it all step by step. We have very little control in publishing. We have very little control in life in general. And so if we just take it one step at a time, rally our troops of all the people we trust and all the people who inspire us and motivate us, and learning to take critique, thickening our skin, knowing that your first draft is never going to be your final draft, unless there is that magical unicorn author out there whose first draft somehow is their last draft. My books, Woman on the Edge, probably 20 drafts. Watch out for her, probably at least 10. My next one, who knows?
Right. Oh my God. Thank you for that. That was such a great conversation, such wonderful advice for writers. Samantha, Sam, because I'm not mad at you.
Yes, you call me
Sam,
Samantha. Every time you call me Samantha, I'm like, why are you mad at me?
I'm not mad at you. Samantha M. Bailey. No. Sam, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. And thank you. I have to say this to all your listeners who may not know what you have done for other writers 10 years ago. You gave me my start in so many ways with Kobo Writing Life. You invited me to events. You gave me a stage. You gave me a stage when no one else wanted to give me a stage. You gave me your place in line to meet Margaret Atwood. You invited me as a writer in residence at BEA in New York City. You helped with the book buzz parties that Meredith Shore and Francine LaSalle and I used to host and would love to host again. So you are one of the greatest supporters of authors in existence. And you do it just because you love doing it. You don't do it to get anything back. And so it's just so appreciated by the community at large.
Thank you kindly. I do it because the world's better off with your great stories and more people reading them. That's why I do it. It's selfish. But Sam, thanks so much.
Thank you so much.